Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. A group of centrist Dems caved, so there is a shutdown deal. We will get to all of that. Ro Khanna is also going to join us. He is calling for Chuck Schumer to resign over this, just coming right out and saying it. So going to get his thoughts on all of this. There's also a bunch of weird policy proposals coming out from the Trump administration. We're going to cover one of them today, which is 50-year mortgages. So just take on more debt, pay more to the bank for longer. That's their solution to the housing crisis.
You will own nothing and be happy.
Yes.
You will own nothing and be happy.
Indeed. We're also digging into the way that data centers factored into last week's elections and are becoming an increasingly potent issue in terms of our politics, something that we've had our eye on for a little while now. Sam Altman crashing out and appears to be asking us, the U.S. taxpayer, to backstop his potential losses, so that's a great one. Biden administration knew about Israel's war crimes and did nothing about it, a new report reveals. And we have an author of a new book on the trillion-dollar war machine, so a lot of relevant things to get into with him.
Yeah, that's right. I'm excited for all of that. We're going to have Ro Khanna join us a little bit here on the show to give us a reaction to the shutdown deal, which we're very excited. Thank you to everybody who's been signing up, breakingpoints.com. If you can help us out, become a premium subscriber. You saw our election coverage there with Zoran Mamdani and all of our excellent live stream that we put out there. And of course, it does cost money to send people out into the field, but we think it really adds something for all of you. So breakingpoints.com if you are able to help us out. If you can't, no worries. Please just go ahead, hit subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, send the episode to a friend. It really helps the show grow. But let's go ahead and start with the shutdown, as Krystal said. So late last night, some major movement in the United States Senate. Let's go and put this up here on the screen. We're just going to read some of the details here of how the shutdown, deal basically came to pass. The TLDR of the whole thing is this is a full-blown cave from the Democrats, and 8, so-called centrist moderates or whatever joined Republicans in advancing the government deal, the CR deal, which was on the table from the House of Representatives. There are 2 important caveats to that. The Democrats say that what they got in exchange for voting for government funding was, 1, a vote at some point in the future, in December, on the ACA subsidies, those healthcare subsidies. Put a pin in that because we will return a little bit to the healthcare discussion. And 2 is a reversal of government firing, so-called RIFs, reduction in force, from October 1st, 2025, forward to January 31st, 2026. So basically like a 3-month reprieve from any firing of federal government employees. Not previous federal government employees, just immediate federal government employees. That's it. That's basically all they got in exchange. And to be very, very clear, that deal was on the table from the very beginning. So John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, from the beginning was like, look, Dems, I'll give you guys a vote if you want in a few weeks. And from the beginning, they all said, no, that's not enough. We need the actual healthcare subsidies. We need to change the healthcare system. We need, RIF stuff. We just came off this election. Actually, it looked like the Democrats were going to become even more emboldened. But instead, overnight, I personally think what happened is they got spooked from the airlines and from SNAP. I think that the airlines in particular, I was telling the crew, tens of billions of dollars per day in productivity. Newark Airport yesterday was an absolute nightmare. This today, if the shutdown continues, they're saying there'll be a 20% reduction in air traffic control, Thanksgiving travel and all of that. At that point, you're going to have to bail out the airlines, considering the number of losses that they would take. It would just basically bring it to a complete halt of air traffic in this entire country. So they decided they would basically their bluff was called, and they decided to cave and to give in. And I think SNAP was part of that as well. Trump was like, listen, I'll just, hold up the SNAP benefits. And the Supreme Court said that he could. And so in the interim, 42 million people or so going into the holidays would have lost their SNAP benefits. Air traffic would have come to zero. Even though I do eventually think most of that chaos would have been blamed on the Republicans, these Democrats were like, no, we can't deal with that.
I think the SNAP thing was big, very Israeli coded, Trump using food as a weapon of war here, basically against the Democrats, and for these 8, losers, basically, it worked. It is utterly pathetic. It is utterly pathetic that, as you said, Saagar, they could have done this on day one. This quote unquote deal was on the table. You caused all of this pain and suffering now for nothing. You completely bended, completely caved, demonstrated to the American people that you will not stand on business on anything. And at such a perplexing moment, Like, they just secured some of the most impressive election results that we've seen. You know, we're going to cover the massive swing in Georgia, obviously Virginia, obviously New Jersey. Any state that you look at, there was a shift to the left, an absolute reckoning for the Republicans. Trump knew internally he was freaking out about the shutdown and realized this was a major problem for him. And that's the time that you decide to cave, when it's never been more clear that you were winning the debate. It's never been more clear, made more obvious to the American people that you were the ones that were fighting for healthcare. But no, that's the moment when you're apparently at your strongest, based on the electoral results last week, to say, you know what, we're going to take the deal that was available literally on day one. It is so utterly pathetic. These people never fight for anything. Many of them have been looking for a way to cave from the beginning, by the way. And let's just read off the names of who it was that voted for this. It's also noteworthy, you know, who they are politically, because it shows you they know the Democratic base is going to be fucking fury. They're already furious. And not just like lefties, not even just sort of like the rad libs. I'm talking like Matt Iglesias being like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you thinking about here? Near Tandon, you know, pretty unified front of people saying this makes absolutely no sense. So here are the ones who voted yes. Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, Dick Durbin, who's the number 2 in the Senate, John Fetterman, because of course, right. Maggie Hassan, Tim Kaine, Jackie Rosen, and Jeanne Shaheen. You know, the only one of them that I could kind of be like, I kind of see it is Tim Kaine, because Virginia is, you know, he's representing so many federal government workers. But what's noteworthy about all of those people, none of them is up for re-election right now. Yep. None of them. They're either retiring or they're not up until 2028 or even 2030. Those and the other thing to note about that is, number one, that tells you they know the politics of this are absolutely trash for them. They know they could be facing primary challenges from their left for caving to the Republicans, caving to Trump in this moment. That's number one. Number two, it shows you how organized this was.
Yes,
so Chuck Schumer, you know, sorry, Angus King was the other one who's technically an independent from Maine, but in any case, Chuck Schumer voted no on this and put out a video. We can show you some of it saying, you know, that's why I'm voting no, blah, blah, blah. There's reporting from David Dayen over at the American Prospect, one of his writers, that Schumer, of course, was involved in making this deal, cutting this deal from the beginning. So don't be fooled by the fact that he personally didn't vote for it. Schumer's hands are all over this thing, which is exactly why, and we'll get this from Ro Khanna when he joins us, which is exactly why Ro Khanna, and by the way, Mark Pocan as well, are saying, dude, you're not made for this moment. You got to step aside. Someone who understands the moment that we're living through, someone who is actually willing and able to fight for something as basic as healthcare, they need to take the reins. So those are the things to take note of with regard to who specifically it is that voted for this thing. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Jeanne Shaheen was one of the lead negotiators here of the cave. Let's go ahead and take a listen to how she justified this.
This was the only deal on the table. It was our best chance to reopen the government and immediately begin negotiations to extend the ACA tax credits that tens of millions of Americans rely on to keep costs down.
Yep.
It was the only deal on the table. And so basically Republicans were like, you know, normally in these things, there's some meetings, people are, no, there was none of that. And so ultimately, they found the Republican threat to just keep the government closed indefinitely. They found that credible and decided that even though they were getting literally nothing for their votes, for their capitulation, they were going to go ahead and cave. And just on this, you know, idea, okay, there's going to be a vote in December. They pinky promise. I mean, first of all, you can't trust these people. But second of all, let's say the vote probably, you know, let's say it happens. That there's no guarantee it's even going to be brought up in the House. You get some show vote in the Senate. Oh, congratulations, way to go. This is going, they know that there is 0% chance that show vote that they're getting in December, if that even happens, is going to lead to any sort of healthcare resolution for the American people.
It's a joke, obviously. And I can just pretty much tell you no Republican, you know, leader or previous shutdown would have ever caved on these circumstances. They never would have, because if you come off of successful elections, you just got a lot of your whole theory ratified about how energized people are. Then, I mean, look, you are playing with people's lives, and I don't want to put that to the side. You know, federal government employees got some 40 days or whatever without a paycheck. You had the SNAP benefits, air traffic control, the stock market, things were not good, and it actually looked like things were going to go into shambles over the next couple of weeks. All that said, that's kind of the whole point of pursuing a government shutdown or a debt ceiling, type of cliff, which many Republicans have done in the past, specifically to force what they want. I also want to just double click on what you said, where there has been this theory that the Democratic leadership did not endorse the deal. First of all, Dick Durbin, who is literal number 2, who is retiring, voted for the deal. But 2, the way that this always works is, the Senate is the king of the limited hangout, where you take the moderator or whatever, and silently 10 other people will agree. They'll say, look, I won't vote for this, but you do it because you're not up for re-election. You take, all the shit or whatever from the base. And in the interim, we will be, cosplaying or whatever against the deal, but we secretly support you. I have been told that this is the way the stock trading ban works. There's always like 1 or 2 guys that, come out forcefully against it. Silently, it's like 99% of them who are like, yeah, thank you. Please, Rick, keep fighting against this. Same thing works in the House. You let your bomb throwers work inside the system, and the people more in the precarity, even though they agree with the more unpopular policy, they won't technically vote for it. So this is much more organized than a lot of people are thinking. Senator Schumer is trying to hang his hat on the fact that he voted no. Here's what he had to say.
For months and months, Democrats have been fighting to get the Senate to address the health care crisis. This bill does nothing to ensure that that crisis is addressed. I am voting no, and I will keep fighting.
Again, let me explain a little bit more. Washington inside politics is great leaders. What they do is you have ironclad control of your caucus. Nancy Pelosi just retired. That's what she ultimately was good at. And look, we can disagree with many of her aims. You can look at her record. I don't think it's that great. But what she always was great at was delivering the votes. She could count the votes. She was able to wield power effectively by making sure that all of the Democrats in her caucus were very beholden to her. The other person we have to shout out here, Harry Reid. I don't think Harry Reid ever would have let this happen. He was a very good mover, shaker, not above, the gutter politics, always able to move the caucus in a direction. If I think the greatest Senate leader in U.S. history, Lyndon Johnson, is always about internal politics, united front, using that united front to force something from the government. And I do think the Republicans were like a week away from something actually coming through, maybe not necessarily in the House, but in the Senate. And then the Senate and Trump may have caved. Who knows, where things could have gone. That's the whole point, ultimately, of a shutdown. Because in the interim, one reason why people should be furious about this is they did shut our government down for nothing. You took the same deal that was on the table 40 days ago. If you get something out of it, okay, but you get a fake show vote? Come on. I mean, it's a joke, right? Because no, the House isn't going to vote for it. And, even if it comes in December, I mean, come on, that's eternity in politics. That's a month, right? So you literally did nothing, I think, overall. And so, yeah, if you're a Democratic-based person, you should be furious. But also, even if you're American, you should be mad because, again, at this point, like, you really shut us all down and caused a lot of chaos, billions and billions of dollars in lost economic, productivity, whatever. So many people rely on they need some IRS something, from the government they weren't able to get through. So you immiserated a large section of our population for zero. I think that's pathetic. And, that does, look, Democrat base and all of them are going to be upset about it. But, this is a great view into our broken politics, man, because thank you for shutting our government down for this is the longest government shutdown in U.S. history for literally nothing.
Yeah, I mean
zero.
If you couldn't stomach the pain, because you're right. That's the point of a shutdown is you're gonna cause some chaos. You're gonna you're gonna cause pain on behalf of using this leverage to extract something that you believe is going to be beneficial for the American public. Like, that's the whole idea. If you can't take that pain, don't do it. Right? Just cave immediately. Right? It'd be better than, okay, we had all this chaos and you got nothing. You got nothing out of it. Maybe you got some better results on election day. I don't know. Maybe it played into that and maybe that was your whole goal. That is actually disgusting. That is actually disgusting. Because that's the other thing. As much as, we were saying the Supreme Court coming out and saying, all right, we're going to basically let the Trump administration continue to deny SNAP benefits, the increasing airline chaos. As much as I think that was part of this, I also, just given the timing, I feel like these people planned to cave as soon as the election was over. Like, that was the goal, that was the plan all along, is what it feels like to me. Because again, these were the types who were looking to cave from day one. And you know what? It would have been better if they did. If they just did it from the jump, that they never did this, because you caused pain and you got nothing. The other thing you were talking about, the like limited hangout in the Senate and the way that the Senate operates, you know, the other thing, Trump was threatening to get rid of the filibuster and so that they wouldn't need Democrats to pass anything, which to me, I'm like, good.
Yeah.
You should get rid of the filibuster, you know? And there were a lot of Republicans that were nervous about that because they were like, yeah, but then if Democrats get back in power, which increasingly looks possible in the next midterm elections, then they can do things like, you know, they can give DC 2 senators, they can give Puerto Rico 2 senators, they can put age limits or term limits or pack the Supreme Court. You know, it opens up possibilities. These types who just voted for this, they also don't want the filibuster to go away, even though some of them will claim that they do. The reason is because then they don't have an excuse to do nothing. Then you actually like have to take votes and it's actually consequential and things might actually happen. Many of these centrist corporate types, the last thing they want is actual power. The last thing they want is to be able to have to actually explain why they're not delivering for the American people without it being the parliamentarian, oh my God, the Republicans, oh my God, the filibuster. They love having the filibuster as an excuse to do nothing that improves people's lives. So that was the other piece of this, is the fact that Trump was starting to put pressure on Republicans like, okay, just nuke the filibuster and pass it. Personally, for me, that would have been a better resolution to this because in either case, Democrats get nothing. And in that case, it is abundantly clear, like, who forced the shutdown? The Democrats stood firm. And then, you know, you've got the filibuster eliminated and people can actually get what they vote for. And, you know, you have a chance of Congress actually being forced to like govern and take stances on issues.
Yeah, totally. You're absolutely right. I mean, look, yeah, the Republicans don't want it either, right? Because for them, you know, there's nothing they love more than being in the minority and doing nothing. And then when they're in the majority,
too.
Everybody does. Yes, that's the secret.
They've handed all their power to Trump.
Look at the war
powers
powers
happy
stuff.
with that too.
Yeah, look at war powers.
Yeah.
You know, shortly after we wrapped our show on Thursday, there was this fake kabuki vote on the war powers resolution for Venezuela, which actually went down 51-49 in the Senate. But what happened? The only reason why was because the White House came out and said, "Whoa, look, we promised that we aren't going to do anything right now. Whenever it comes to Venezuela." Everyone's like, "Oh, okay, here, Mr. Commander-in-Chief, you have the unilateral authority to not only declare war in an undeclared theater, but to depose a foreign government with U.S. troops in one of the largest deployments in the Caribbean since the 1960s, and we don't have anything to say about it." But Congress is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. You know, to your point also about the politics of all this, you flagged this shot from MSNBC, where even the libs on MSNBC are very angry. So let's take a listen. That is A5, please.
Chuck Schumer should have negotiated a better deal. He should have been in the public more. He's not a bad guy any stretch. He's just not the right person at the right time. We're going through a different time. We're dealing with a GOP that's an anti-democratic movement. They don't care what the American people think on an issue like this. So I think, honestly, this is the end of Chuck Schumer as we go forward.
What do you think of that, Anthony?
You know, I've never been a Chuck Schumer fan.
Look at this, 2 votes.
But I'm not ready to write his obituary just yet. I mean, you don't get to be the Senate Democratic leader for as long as he has without some raw political skills.
I don't even. First of all, I don't know who that guy is. But second, it's like, well, again, it's like that's Sunday evening fare there on MSNBC. But I mean, look, I think the extent to the evidence at this point is this: people are pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And I can tell you, you know, the Republicans never would have folded for something like this. Yeah. Absolutely not. They never would have. Now, Trump did in the past whenever it came to his previous longest shutdown in, what was 2018? I think, 2018, 2019, that went into the long year over it was like the border wall funding. He definitely caved, don't get me wrong. But in terms of the original Obama, she destroyed him.
Yeah.
But when I think back to the shutdowns, the 2013 shutdowns and more that they fought against Obama, and including with some of the debt ceiling fights, I mean, you never would have seen this level of cave from them. You can go back and you can read some of the history. They definitely at least got something out of it whenever, especially on the debt ceiling and eventual like panels and other things for Social Security, entitlements, etc. So yeah, I mean, it's bad. Like you said, don't shut the government down if you can't take the heat. The whole point is that the heat is supposed to do something. And especially after getting ratified in an election in terms of your strategy against this, I think it's really pathetic for them as a national movement. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.